Hey everybody, this is Andrea Jenson from The Cash Flow CFO, and you're listening to the Cash Flow CFO podcast, the show that explores the financial side of running a business for people who want to maximize profitability and scale with confidence. If you want to make smart financial decisions based on data and put more of your hard-earned profits into your pocket, this is the podcast for you. This episode of the Cash Flow CFO podcast is brought to you by the Cash Flow CFO. Did you know that on average, business owners have up to 84% of their personal net worth tied up in their business? Our virtual CPAs and CFOs, as well as accounting and bookkeeping experts, empower business owners just like you to make big leaps that help them maximize profitability and scale with confidence. Visit thecashflowcfo.com for more information, and thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and our guest for today is Lauren Banyar Reich. Lauren is the founder and CEO of LBR PR, where they work with visionary thought leaders, including best-selling authors, C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, doctors, lawyers, and innovative brands and nonprofits to advance their business goals using both PR and earned media. We'll dive into that because that's a hot topic, earned media. The LBR PR team excels at generating meaningful press that moves the needle for their clients, whether it's expert commentary in the Wall Street Journal, bylined articles on CNBC.com, product features in Refinery 29 and Glamour, or regional TV from New York's Fox 5 to Good Day LA. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love talking to marketing people because I think that, and I know PR is a sub of marketing, so I hope that's not misspeaking there. But I think that there's so many, what's the best word? Best kept secrets out there, and especially in the field, who you are helping to support and getting their message out there, right? The experts and the innovators and the thought leaders and things like that. So I think it's such a valuable service that you guys are providing, and also one that's really still a little bit unknown, right? Or a little bit like, I think I know what PR is and does. But I'd love, let's jump in right there and tell me, how did you get started with this business?
I picked public relations out of a hat when I was 18 years old because I had an English teacher who knew me very well and was like, "Gosh, you're really good, up in front of people on a stage, in front of folks, explaining things and speaking, and you're a great writer, and maybe PR is kind of the perfect mashup of utilizing those skills." So I actually went to journalism school at University of Maryland and studied public relations, which was under the J school at that time. So it was just kind of a lucky, fluky thing. And I loved it because of all of those reasons, because it took all of the favorite things that I was kind of naturally good at and enjoyed doing, speaking and writing and storytelling, and it kind of mashed them all up. And then it could be applied across really almost any industry, category, vertical topic on the planet, really. And that kept me interested for a really long time and still keeps me interested.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's kind of, I have a similar story of getting into the accounting field. I was in college and playing soccer. And so I was just concerned with, hey, I got to keep my GPA up. And I was doing a business degree, and it's taxing. You're traveling for games, and there's practices, and there's all the things. And then you've got, on top of that, all your course load. And I took some accounting classes, and it was like A. And I was like, sweet, let's take some more of these. So I just kept taking them. And finally, one day, my professor pulled me aside, and he's like, most people have to work really hard to get A's in accounting. And I was like, oh, okay. It's just the language. I understood it. My brain works this way. I get along with engineers very well because our brains are like systematically, but anyway, so that's awesome.
No, it's funny. I think go with your core genius, right? And my equivalency to that is I would always be able to diagram the sentence and say what was wrong, but I couldn't tell you why. Like I'd be like, no, this comma goes here, and this is the, and I would move it around, but I couldn't necessarily use the grammar vocabulary, but I knew it was wrong, and I knew how it was wrong and how to fix it. So I totally get that.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you go. For all of our younger listeners who are trying to figure it out, go with what comes natural to you and build upon that, right? Because that's going to open up doors for you initially, and then you'll see, you'll get to get more exposure into the different avenues you could take that skill set.
Absolutely.
As you continue in your career. So very cool. So let's fast forward. What are some of the coolest things about what you do and who you get to work with?
Absolutely. So just to kind of go back a little and level set, I guess, on how PR fits into what I call, the marketing mix, right? So, most of our clients, to sound like a dinosaur, it used to be that PR could be kind of a big thing to stake your claim on and say, well, we're just doing PR. We're not going to do any pay to play. We're not going to do any social. We're just going to do earned media, right? But nowadays, it's really all about that marketing mix, right? And so I think of the marketing mix you want to have, and you want to find the mix for your business. Not every business needs all of these pieces, but you're going to probably have a content aspect, whether it's a newsletter or a social media, feed, or whatever that looks like. You're going to have kind of a content wheel. You're going to obviously have your website. You may have speaking engagements. You may have SEO, right? You may be doing advertising. You could be doing any one of those things, or probably a mix therein. And what public relations really can do is kind of throw gasoline on that fire. So when that earned media placement comes in, and the New York Times is an easy example. You got a great placement in the New York Times, and let's say you get a backlink, so it's going to give you amazing organic traffic. Let's say that's going to be archived online as kind of one of the top search results when someone Googles you, because the New York Times domain rating is so high. That's something you can then tout on your website, in your newsletter, on your social. You can even put something like that in your signature to say, hey, did you see my placement in the New York Times? Did you see I was quoted in the New York Times? Right in your signature. There's so many ways to leverage that. So what it can do is kind of provide 2, 3, 5, 10 clicks up on that marketing mix to really amplify things, or light them on fire, or whatever metaphor I'm using now. So that's kind of how to think about it. And then I think, what's really fun about PR and the way we approach it, because we work with experts, and the through line for all of our clients, whether they're B2B or B2C, is really education, expertise, and thought leadership. So we're going to make sure that our clients' product, service, knowledge is always going to be of service both to the media and to that end audience. And when you do that, it's less about the thing. It's less about the lipstick or the clothing brand or the HR services or whatever, or the CFO services. It's really less about that and more about how are you and your brand and your business coming through as credible and visible, in the media.
Yep. No, that makes total sense. So earned media, now paid media, earned media. Tell me a little bit about the difference of those two.
Yeah. So when we say the word earned media, it's really editorial coverage. And that is, look, if you've got $50,000 to buy, a front page ad in the Sunday paper, great. Anybody with $50,000 can pay for that ad, right? It doesn't necessarily set you apart in any way. And what earned media is it's when you're mentioned in that story, when you're in that blog, when you're on that podcast, and many cases when you're on that stage. That is all kind of earned, meaning that you're there because your expertise has qualified you to be on that stage, whether that's kind of the metaphorical stage of kind of the visibility of being on television or being on a podcast, or the actual stage, let's say, as a speaker or presenter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And paid, again, is, there's a little blurring of the lines these days. And some of the media outlets, do have opportunities for folks to be part of a contributor circle. So whereas, there used to be a very black and white line, I think like everything else, it's kind of overlapping and blurring together. But the fact is that, earned media tends to also beget more earned media, right? Because even journalists are looking up who's the go-to source for this. What are the hottest topics, trends, products, services, and who are the folks who are featured regularly, because they know then that you're going to be able to be credible and give them what they need. So it starts to kind of snowball, many times for our clients. In fact, sometimes they'll go, oh, well, the media called me directly. And we're like, don't mess that up. Give it to us. We'll handle it. Send it back to us. We'll take care of it. But that's what starts to happen. You become that go-to source. That's kind of the goal in many ways.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. And then, we're always, as a CFO firm, we're looking at customer acquisition costs. We're looking at all your different marketing channels. We're looking at, what is that return on each channel, and breaking down the expenses that way. So it sounds like this earned media provides a lot of, you mentioned the backlinks, you mentioned, different benefits, I guess is the best way to put that are going to lower that customer acquisition cost. So you might be doing a little bit more legwork up front, right? To be, finding out, what does that journalist need? How can I help them so that they can help me, right? But there's some more legwork up front. Am I thinking about that in the right way?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to maybe answer a different question first, because you were starting to get at is like, how do you measure this? Like, you're the CFO, right? You're like, what is the return on this investment, right? And we get that question a lot. And I think, the black box of PR is that if I had the answer to that question, I would be living in Tahiti on an island, drinking a pina colada, and not talking to anybody or doing any work or doing anything, So the trick of PR, the challenge, of really kind of measuring what that success looks like is picking metrics that you can see. Brand building writ large is really hard to measure, right? But certain things within earned media are easier to measure, right? So you could have a tier 1 media list. Let's say that, that you place a lot of value in your customers or your referral sources are reading this particular batch of media. So that's really important. So that's one way to weight whether something is a successful campaign or not. Another way is web traffic. Again, sometimes with those backlinks, and not all websites offer backlinks, not all media, do that. But when the ones that do, you can look at traffic. You can look at organic search. You can look at where your Google, if you're still coming up on the first or the second page or third page, or if you've moved up to the first page. So there's lots of different metrics. There's also, were you the only expert quoted in that article? What was your share of voice in that story? Were you the first and the last quoted? Were you, were you featured in 3 or 4 different sections or over 3 or 4 different, let's say, interviews? We had a client on NPR the other day, and she's going to be part of like 3 or 4 segments now as opposed to just one. So there's lots of ways to measure what that success looks like. And the other way we think about it is PR is not a sales funnel function. It's kind of maybe top of funnel, but it's even like higher up than that in a lot of ways. But what it can do, and we hear clients anecdotally saying all the time, is it moves folks down that know, like, trust funnel faster, because they've already heard you on this podcast. They know Andrea is really smart. They know, they get what your philosophy is and how you approach your work. They've heard you, give really insightful insights and takeaways and concrete things that they've remembered, right? So you're not just, when they walk in that door, whatever that door is, whether it's, onto your website, into your office, over the phone, whatever that looks like, even your LinkedIn profile, they're further down that path of really feeling like they know you and like you and trust you than they would have been if you came in cold.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not answer your question, but I gave you
But you did, because that is very measurable, right? The length of time that your sales process takes from start to finish greatly affects the scalability of your business and the predictability of that scaling. And so that's really a really valuable metric. And I know that, there's lots of ways too. You can, how did you hear about us when you first,
right,
have a conversation with a new prospect? And you should be tracking that. If you're not tracking that, listeners, please do, because that's a lot of, gold in that data to understand what's working, what's not, and then to compare it to how much am I spending on that, and is it working or is it not? And,
right,
be able to make some educated decisions, based on the data. So yeah, no, that's really, really valuable advice, right? And just, I liked your explanation of it, because it's like, yes, it's a very wide, a lot of times you can't put your finger on it, right? But the snowball effect is going to have other benefits in your business and also the opportunities, right? So going back to the earned media, speaking on stages, having the opportunity to be in front of your target audience, you're not going to get those invitations, whether they're paid or not. You're not going to get those invitations to be visible, right? And in the
if you aren't already a little known.
Exactly. Yep. So it's yes, the legwork up front, but the payoff, has other benefits that you don't realize would be coming.
We have a client that identified, they're an outsourced HR agency, and they identified a real opportunity in automotive, right? This was, coming out of the pandemic when, all these auto dealers were really struggling. They didn't have the cars, right? To really kind of maintain those great sales guys. There was no inventory, right? And so how do you keep salespeople when there's no inventory? How do you keep great service folks when there's no inventory, right? And so they had identified a real opportunity to help, to be of service to these auto dealers in that time by coming in with some really creative compensation modeling, right? So they came to us and they said, we see an opportunity to grow market share here. Can we kind of hyper surgically target these automotive, publications and outlets and events and things like that? And we were like, we can do this, right? But that's sometimes what success looks like. So they weren't looking to hit, they weren't looking to hit Wall Street Journal. They were looking to hit, Fortune. They were looking to really get in front of the maybe 50,000 core audience, group, the auto dealers and folks in that industry. So it was a very specific arena they were targeting, and we were able to, over the course of probably 6 months to a year, every single month, they were at least featured in one of those publications. They were attending and speaking at one of those trade events, and they were able to really get some great, to close some great deals and get some great clients out of that. But that's an example of like a really strategic way PR can be used for you, as opposed to just the brand building. And what's nice is a lot of times in the way we approach it, you can kind of do both. You just have to be really mindful of how you go about it. But it can be done, there's lots of ways. And we always start ultimately with what are the goals of the business, just like you, right? It's like, you want to start with what are the goals of the business? And then how are we using our PR toolkit? How are we using the things that we're really good at and helping you achieve those goals? And I think that any, advisor or, any great company that services, especially small and medium-sized businesses, is going to come in and always be focused on that goal, and then using their skills to help their clients grow in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And that's, you've got to get your message out. There's lots of avenues to do that. And, there's not one that's better than others, right? It's that layered effect and diversifying, how you're reaching that target audience. I think that that's really important. And I think a lot of business owners, I joke about the best kept secret because I feel like a lot of our clients are that, they're just amazing at what they do, and they have amazing business models and hearts the size of, they're just amazing human beings, right? And entrepreneurs. And still, every business that I know of, in some form and at some point in their life cycle is struggling with leads, with qualified leads, with, all the things. And have you noticed that there's a shift between business owners being the face of the business versus a brand? I know for a while it was leaning towards one versus the other. Where are we at with that?
Start scaling with confidence today. The Cashflow CFO is a full-service accounting and fractional CFO firm. So it goes without saying that our financial experts are phenomenal at number crunching. But more than that, they are expert communicators who will connect all those complicated financial dots in a way that just makes sense. We don't wait in the wings and check in every so often either. With our boutique approach, we position ourselves front and center, watching over every dollar that comes in and out of your business as if it was our own. So if your business is making money and you're ready to take it to the next level, but you're not sure you completely understand your numbers, and you're looking for that trusted guide to help you build a roadmap to reach your financial goals, it sounds like we would be a great fit. Visit thecashflowcfo.com and let's get started empowering you to build and scale your business the way you want to today.
Well, I think, for the size businesses that we work with, and again, I'm saying, probably anywhere from 1 to 10 million is probably the sweet spot of our range, right? Like 1 million is, in revenue is not, maybe in some people's vision, enough to really justify hiring a PR agency. But if it's part of that strategy, that growth strategy, that plan, it can really give a boost. And we've worked with companies, that small and even a little smaller. And then, up to that $10, $15 million mark. And at that point, I think it really does become the brand build. And at that point, that CEO, that founder, is really kind of truly in that kind of visionary role. But I find in the interim, that build oftentimes really does rest on that entrepreneur and their vision, even when they're still kind of in the business. And a lot of times what will happen is we'll leverage that C-suite. We'll leverage the group of, kind of other senior folks within a firm or a company or a brand, because they may have different expertise that we can leverage for them. Right. So we can kind of tap into those different arenas. We have a outsourced, it's an alternative legal service provider. It's essentially a staffing agency for attorneys that we work with. And they have a fantastic leadership team where we work with their CEO, who's really, amazing and has her strengths and is a, former attorney. So she speaks to it from a very different angle. And then we have, 2 of their lead recruiters who, even though they're not attorneys, have been in this business for a really long time and have a different slant and a different perspective and a different, boots on the ground point of view that they give us. So we have kind of a great triumvirate of folks there that we can leverage. But I think a lot of times as you grow, it does kind of tend to be more about the brand build and less about the business owner. But, again, my clients tend to be in that space where they're still on the build. But I think the fun of it for me, right, is like working with other entrepreneurs too. So maybe I tend to, love working with, and we certainly do love all of our clients. But I think those entrepreneurs who are really passionate and come in with a strong point of view, because that gives us a leg up, right? When we work with business leaders who really have a strong point of view on something, that's gold for PR, being able to come in and really, get those messages out and have our clients not be afraid of being, I don't want to say controversial, but like not afraid of like taking a stand, right? And having an opinion or identifying a trend or making a prediction. Those are all the kinds of things that really help us get our clients out there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I know you have a service that speaks to this, but if somebody is listening and they're saying, hey, this is something I want to try out for my business, what's a great place for them to get started with PR?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's lots of, God, what is it even called anymore? It used to be called Harrow. A lot of people knew Harrow, help a reporter out. It has since been purchased by Cision, and I honestly can't remember the name of the new platform, but there is a new platform owned by Cision that is kind of serving that same function where, what will happen is journalists will put out queries where they are kind of asking for an expert in your arena, let's say, and you can kind of write back to them and pitch yourself. Quoted is another one of those platforms. And in all transparency, we use those platforms as well. We have relationships with press, but we're looking for those reactive opportunities as well. I will say we tend to have a little higher hit rate with it just because it's what we do, right? Like just because we know how to respond in a way that's really of service to the press. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't dip your toe in and start trying that out. And I think the one thing really to keep in mind, two things. Well, there's lots more, but I'll highlight two things to keep in mind as you're doing this is number one, this person on the other end of the query, this journalist, they're a person. So you have to, and I know that sounds like really stupid and kind of basic, but you need to provide value to them just in the same way you would think about a customer or a client or a referral source or an employee, right? You're still looking to provide value to them. And if that's your mindset, if you're not going, well, I'm so great, you should just talk to me because I know everything, right? As opposed to saying, really, answering the question that they have or really saying, hey, I understand that the query is about this, but I actually think the story is really this over here because this is what I've been doing for a really long time. And here's a couple of things that might show you and not just tell you that I'm the expert. So I think, keeping that of service mindset and remembering that, this isn't a cold, email that goes out into the ether. This is going to be received by a journalist that you frankly want to build a relationship with. So really understanding that is huge. And I think the other thing is, be clear and concise and then zip it. Answer the question, give your contact information. If they want more, they'll reach out for more, but give them what they've asked for and then, call it a day. So when you use those platforms, those are 2 tricks, but the platforms are great. And I think it's a really good way for people to get comfortable with it. The next level up, which I think is maybe what you were alluding to, is we're actually offering a scaled version right now of a PR in a box, right? Where we give our clients a real deep and personalized understanding of how to get the kinds of media that they want. And then we give them the deliverables on the back end. We're going to give them customized pitch letters. We're going to give them all the best practices for their industry and the kinds of press that they're looking to target. But it is something that if you're, as I've been saying, kind of PR curious, you can go out there and start dabbling in it on your own on some of these, free and really low cost platforms. But it's also a momentum game. So it's, if you're going to do it, keep in mind that it's going to need to be successful and to feel the lift, an ongoing strategy, just like everything else in your business. You don't look at your books once a year, or at least you shouldn't be. It's something you want to be doing, on a regular basis. So I think just remembering that is important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, and it's the upfront, right? There's going to be more of the heavy lift up front, but then you'll see that pay off, over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm unemployable by other people. Like I'm just going to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life now. So even if this PR thing doesn't work out, it's like, so you have to kind of think about it. Like, what is the long game, right? The long game is to build that reputation. Like if your long game is your business, then you want to be building these relationships. You want to be building this visibility, and it's going to be, just like going to the gym. It's going to become like a maintenance thing where you're going to stay stronger because you're doing that activity on the regular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So what are some of the other maybe best kept secrets or things that people who are coming into this channel, if you will, of layering this strategy into their marketing? What are some of the things that maybe surprise the clients that you work with, or things that delight them that they didn't even know they were going to get?
I think honestly, sometimes clients are surprised that stuff that they don't think is very interesting about their business is actually really interesting. Like, it's almost like that you're so in the weeds with your business. You're so like, just, doesn't everybody know this already? Right. And I think, challenging yourself, in your thought leadership, as you want to put yourself out there as an expert, to really think about, what is it that people really, that I'm going to take myself agnostically out of this. Like, what is it that people really need to know? I always have my clients think about, whatever their business is, what would you want? How would you advise your best friend if they were looking to go hire a PR firm, or if they were looking to hire a CFO? Like, what are those things that, like, I think are no-brainers, right? If a public relations person promises you that they can deliver coverage in fill in the blank publication, they are lying. That's not how earned media works. They could promise you an advertisement if you have the money to pay for it, but the rub, the benefit, the kind of crux of earned media is it can't be promised, right? That journalist has to make the decision. It's out of my control. I can tee you up, to them in the most beautiful package with a big rosy bow on it. But if they're not interested, or the timing's off, or the story's not being written right now, and maybe it's being written 6 months from now, I can't guarantee that coverage. So there's all these things that as a PR person, I know are red flags, let's say, and that you would know, are red flags if someone's looking to hire in your industry. So I think really taking it back to that core educational level and recognizing that not everybody knows the things that you know about your business, and it's not basic. It's actually really good education. And understanding that can help you, I think, get concrete about the things that are pitchable to the press.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And it might be something that you find yourself repeating over and over and over again throughout the course of, you're delivering your services. Those would be the little nuggets, right? That would be somebody else would go, oh, aha, that connects the dots for me on, one of the topics that you're an expert in. So that makes total sense.
Absolutely. I think the other thing, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going
Sorry, I
to
think
change to a different. You can finish that thought.
You're good. It's okay. Go ahead, change.
Okay. So I was just wondering, when a business, hits a certain revenue level, let's say they're 5 million, does the strategy change for as the business continues to grow and the new revenue levels? Does that strategy change over time?
Unless the business itself is changing strategy, I don't think it really does. I mean, I think it's, if there's a new offering, if there's a new launch, if there's a merger, if there's something in that business that's going on that's new, it doesn't necessarily matter the revenue, point. It's really about that inflection of, what is newsworthy right now, whether it's the industry or the business itself. So I think it's really more about, again, those business goals, right? It's dialing back to those business goals. And like I gave the example for the client who identified, automotive as a real opportunity for them. They've grown as a result. So now we've moved to the next, target segment to try to see if we can replicate that success.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I bet there's quite a bit of newsworthy things that a business does in the normal course that business owners don't even realize you could use, like you were saying, right? A new product or a new service or a merger, or maybe they landed a really big client and, it's a big deal for, I know a lot of publicly traded companies, their stock's going to track, with those kinds of press releases and things like that. So yeah, that's actually a really good way to look at it and say, hey, is there anything here that I can utilize, as a little media asset that's happening in my business?
Well, and what's interesting is there's a couple inflection points. We talked about kind of mergers, acquisitions. We're doing, new hires are not always necessarily news unless they bring with them a skill set, a vision that's kind of different or new. And that's totally leverageable. And we're just doing for a client right now that has a new global CEO, new rebranding. So we're really leveraging that to talk about. So we work with very big companies too, but they are really leveraging that to kind of chart the vision for the future of the industry. Like he's coming in and really trying to reshape the industry, right? So that's absolutely news. But it's interesting. We get clients, yes, when they have news. We get clients a lot of times when they have FOMO. And they're like, why is this fill in the blank company around the block? They're bozos. They're not as good as we are. Their product isn't as good. Their service isn't as good. Why are they all of a sudden everywhere? And the truth is it's because they're putting time, money, and resources into leveling up that marketing mix. Maybe it's not just PR, but PR is, again, oftentimes what will take it up a notch. We also get a lot of clients, to your point before, where they are tired of being a best kept secret. And they're like, what do we do to get outside of this referral, or client network that already knows us? How do we reach new eyeballs? And what PR can do, and what our client that was featured on NPR the other day, she got a call from a current client, she got a call from a prospect, and she got a call from a referral source. And they were like, but that's just you on NPR, So cool. Yeah. And so what that does is it not only makes you more visible and give you credibility within the network, but then all those people that had never heard her before were also exposed to her expertise, her brand name, all of those things. So it's really, there's a couple inflection points where, PR can very easily come in. And usually they're pain points, and I hate to kind of sell it like that, but a lot of times it is that FOMO that, tired of being kind of, not as known as the competition.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that just speaks to the, when you see somebody with a subpar product or service in your market, it should fire you up, right? It should be like, hey, no, I don't want my customers or anybody to go there because they're not going to get what they would get with me. So right. It's that lights the fire under them to step into a higher level of visibility. And I know that's probably a whole nother topic, right? Of the visibility that you have. A lot of people are like, no, I just want to be, behind the scenes doing my little thing over here. That opens up a whole nother layer of professional growth and development as being, a visible business owner and having a stance or having a a platform to really spread your message on.
But see, a lot of people will come to us and say, well, I don't have a huge ego. I don't want to be out there just to be out there. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. Again, back to you are being of service to the press with your expertise, product, service, whatever. You are being of service to that end reader, watcher, listener, and you are being of service to your clients with what you provide. So when you put that lens on it, everybody's got an ego, fine. But like for the people that really get a little bit of that stage fright, or they're like, oh, I don't want this to be so about me. It's not about you. It's about how you're helping, right? You're helping the journalist tell that story. You're helping that, end consumer or that person in the C-suite make a better decision. So when you flip it like that, I think it's a lot easier to kind of get your head around and get comfortable with.
Love that. Love that. This has been such a great conversation. How can everybody who's listening or watching this interview find out more about you and your services?
Absolutely. So our website is a great place to start. It's www.lbrpr.com. I am also on LinkedIn, and we also, even in our content, are really kind of trying to step it up and just educate and share the things that we know with folks out there who are, maybe PR curious or don't really understand what sometimes this kind of black box of PR can be. And so you'll find lots more content and information there.
Perfect. And we will also link those, the information to the show notes so you guys can check it out there and reach out. I think that this is such a valuable component of your marketing strategy, and that I think every business should have some form of PR happening, because it really is, I just keep going back to what you said about shortening that sales process. That's so, so key. And, being in control of your sales, how long, knowing how long does it take, how many new customers am I going to get in this period of time, and what is that going to cost me? This is one of the pieces that are really going to play nicely with all of the other marketing activities that you're doing, and really, get more fire behind them. So I'm excited that we had this conversation, and I'm excited for everyone to go and learn more about this. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and review, and we'll catch you on the next episode. If you're looking for more content or resources in the meantime, check out our website for information, blogs, and our I've Got a Spreadsheet for That series. That's thecashflowcfo.com. Again, thecashflowcfo.com. We can't wait to hear from you.